Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It's a great pleasure to be here. And indeed, it was a very appropriate introduction of Susanna's reading this morning. And before I knew Spiritism, I was already involved for my own curiosity. I didn't have any plans to write anything about it. It was for my knowledge, because I always questioned, or have always questioned, things and teachings and knowledges. And one of the phenomenon that I really questioned a lot before I did my research, and then before I was introduced into Spiritism, was obviously the possibility of the survival of us, or spirits, or this energy, survival after the death of the physical organism in which that energy or that spirit was engaged with. And at one point, I didn't believe in anything. I thought that we are born, and then we die, and that's it. We were nothing before, and we will be nothing after the body dies. And my questioning then, in my research, I have always been open-minded to whatever things, or whatever knowledge or possibilities. So I started then my research. So I went to religion. Religion is a good thing for us to start. It's a good beginning. So I started studying religions, philosophies. And then I got into more scientific facts, because then in religion there's a lot of this. So all of them, maybe with a few exceptions, talk about that we do, that the spirit or the soul survives physical death. And so I wanted more. It's good, fine and dandy. Then I went to, and then looking at the literature, and I found many. And I found, obviously, academic studies on reincarnation, on apparitions, on deathbed vision, all that things that now my books deal with. So that was all prior to knowing Spiritism. So I had a good knowledge. And I also had found a good body of literature in which convinced me that we do live by a law of cause effect, that what we do, that what we plant we sow, be the good or bad and all that. So that was all prior to Spiritism. And then I was amazed when I started reading the Spirit's book, which is the book that I'm always reading, and I read every day a little bit. And then I was amazed that everything, and there was a book that was written in 157 years ago, I think this year is going to be 158, right? Years ago. And then all that information that I had there, science or whoever was doing this research in the US and also in other countries, it was all there. So, and then when you talk about the possibility of survival of physical death, especially to some people, they say, you know, but we have no way of knowing, because nobody who died came back. Or there's no words, no communication from spirits that come and tell us that we do survive physical death. And that is wrong, because there's a lot. There's more evidence than we have time to read or research about in one lifetime. And one of the topics that is that's most researched the most for the past 30 and 33, 34 years is near-death experience. So, and I was amazed when I was reading or studying near-death experience, or even talking to people who had near-death experience. Also other events that we learn in Spiritism. And that, you know, as Susanna was saying in her reading, that then when we go to the other side of life, which we live the other side of life now, and you can find about, more about it here, because I talk about what we call about out-of-body experiences, and we learn that in the Spirits book. Kardec has chapter 8 of book 2 of the Spirits book, one whole chapter talking about this, our nightly incursions into the spirit world, and how connected we are with the spiritual world and with our spiritual guides, with people who have left the physical life already, who are already living in the non-spirit, in non-physical life, in the spirit life. We have all this connection, communication, active connection, active communication in our daily lives. So we already know how it is. So when in a near-death experience, some of the events that fascinated me is that we have all that demonstrated, and we learn and we read about in the Spiritism. So we do have a very solid teachings, which is Spiritism, that is backed up by studies, by facts, and whatnot. So we do have this solid knowledge in our religion, that we use it, that we must use it in order for us to do the job that we're doing here, that we reincarnated for, and so that we do it productively here, and that we act as we should act in the right path, all the teachings that we have in the Spiritism, because the time that we go back to the spirit realm for good, so we already go temporarily, then we have that clear consciousness that we have done a good job, and then when we go living longer, we live longer in the non-physical world, we have a little bit more of happiness, because we did a good job here, the job that we should have done. And we also learn that from people who had this brush with death, in the so-called near-death experiences, that come back and tell us that what happened to them during that period of time, that they were very conscious in living this non-physical life, that most of them normally didn't believe it existed, but the experience made them change their lives because they were there. There's nothing that can deny what happened to them, and you cannot tell them that we do not survive the death of the physical body. So we start with this image that shows graphically what you have an idea what this near-death experience is. So the person, and we're going to see in the next slide, the person has a clinical, what they call a clinical death, for whatever reason. We're going to see also the reasons. And then the body is it's called clinical death because there's no heartbeat. The equipment, the monitor, the electrocardiogram is not detecting heartbeat. The electroencephalogram is not detecting brain waves, so both are flatlined. So they're clinically dead, though they are not necessarily death. That's one of the arguments that near-death experience is not death, because there's still life in the physical body, even if it's undetected, it's still there. But then there is for sure a certainty that the body, the physical body, has no consciousness. For me to be talking, to be saying, to be thinking right now, or even to hallucinate, I have to have my brain waves have to be active. I have to have activity in my brain. Otherwise, I am unconscious. So if in the materialistic view, a body, a physical body that has no consciousness, it can't process anything. It can't even hallucinate because it has no brain wave. But then what happens is during these experiences is that the person in that condition, unconscious, so no heartbeat, no brain waves, return after a period of being unconscious, 5 minutes, 2 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour even, as there were cases. Then they come telling this story or this thing that happened to them during that time that, according to materialistic science, would be impossible. So what are NDs? Have anybody here heard of ND, near-death experience? Are you familiar with it? Well, a bunch of people, maybe people who even have experienced or know. So NDE is short for near-death experience, and they are this very intense and lucid experience that a person has of being outside of the physical body when, in this case, when the physical body is close to death. This is, and I can tell you for sure from my own experience, is not as having a near-death experience, but having an out-of-body experiences frequently. So NDE is this process, this phenomenon is an out-of-body experience, obviously, because the person is going to be out of the body and very conscious, very lucid, most of them, of the experience. So it is an out-of-body experience that was took place because the body, and we're going to see what Spiritism tells us, that took place in that very grave or serious condition where the body was near death. And it's always it's good to keep in mind that even though clinical death, in this case of near-death experience, may not be legally considered death, because the person eventually is going to be resuscitated, and normally by or through the efforts of the medical doctors or medical people, whoever there is there, that was called when that person had either a heart attack or drowning or whatever. If that person is not, if there are no efforts to resuscitate that person, in many cases, there are certain exceptions, the person will die if that person is not helped by others. There are cases, for instance, of near-death experience, and that mainly during suicide attempt, for instance, with a drug overdose, or not an overdose, but that was not that intense. Or there are cases that I'm familiar with of people who try to kill themselves by opening the gas in their houses and closed everything. They had a near-death experience, but eventually, for some reason, maybe the gas dissipated, and the person then came back to consciousness on their own without, without any interference from others. So, but few cases, most of them is will have to have third-party interference in order to be brought back to life. Otherwise, that person will then die. And there are the cases of a near-death experience for those who are familiar with. They're mostly these beautiful things that they go and they see, they go to this beautiful place, they meet deceased relatives and that they thought they would never see again, and things like that. I think we need to finish 12, right? Because we have the rest of the activities. So I'm going to leave it very open. Like as I talked, if you have questions or anything that you didn't understand or whatever, if you have an input to make or whatever, just feel free, just raise your hand and we'll go. So we have a first case.
I can't understand the note at the bottom. Can you explain a bit?
The note? Oh, okay, yeah.
It seems a bit...
Yeah, so most of the experiences, and that is a good thing, because if most of the experiences are positive, and so that person, maybe we are here working hard to get a little bit better, right? To learn things, to live, to do things right. So maybe for us, it's going to be a very pleasant experience too. So we're going to see a lot of light. So mostly, I said that they're positive experiences, and most of these positive experiences are in events of natural death. Let's call it natural death. Cardiac arrest, drowning, which is drowning, it's an accident, or an accident, be it a car accident or whatever. They're mostly positive. Negative, suicide and drug overdose are mostly, and I research a lot of these cases, they're mostly almost 100% negative. Negative what I mean is the experience per se is negative. For instance, where a near-death experience by natural cause is brilliant. There's light, there's the green matter, there's music, all that. Those that are from suicide attempt overdose are bleak. They don't see light, they see darkness, they have this sense of being perpetually in this limbo, in this blackness, and they also see and hear, smell, or these black creatures. And we say black in the sense that to them is it's the absence of light in that experience. So it's negative in that sense because it's horrible. And when it's positive light and beauty and all that, the person, and that is a paradox, the person, even if the person feared death, at that moment when they experience that moment of beauty, of intense beauty, then they're asked sometimes if they want to stay there or if they want to return to physical life, and mostly say that they want to stay there, stay dead, even if they feared it. So they want to stay there. In the negative ones, in case of suicide attempt and overdose, the person wants to get out of it because it's horrible. It didn't solve any problem that they thought it would solve. It exacerbated their suffering, so they want out. And what's amazing is, in most cases, for the moment in that they see the light and that they return to their physical body, if there's no intervention, for instance, is when they plead help, they plead God's help. Oh, Jesus, save me, or even if they were atheist or whatever. So, and then there's the moment that the person then returns to physical life. It's negative in that sense, but it has a positive effect because the person is going to see that they're not in the right path, that they're going against what they should be doing here in life. And some people in their cases, in suicide attempts, that before the person saw the light or that really needed to change and did make efforts to change was after 3 suicide attempts, and that was the last one. And in most cases they come changed. A drug addict, for instance, there are several cases of a person who had a drug overdose that when that person has that experience returns, and most of them, they get involved in helping other people and kids with drug addiction and things like that. So it's a forced inner reform. When we talk about inner reform, is that the term that we use in English? Yeah, inner transformation, to change ourselves from a path that we thought was right, and it isn't, so we become more loving people, more spiritual people, better, more generous people, all those things that we learn, that we come here in the Spirit Center, in that spirit, that is something that is a theme that is very recurrent, that there's necessity to change. So people having this near-death experience, either positive or negative in that case, sense that need to transform themselves, to change all the way of life that they were living prior to that. And they see then that many things they were doing wrong. Obviously they know that there are things they're doing right, so they keep the right and discard the wrongdoing. So in the note is that there are also cases of negative NDEs, even in cases of a natural cause. So a person having a cardiac arrest or drowning, for instance, could have also this negative experience, like one person committing suicide. Why? We don't know, but it would be good if we could, if we got to know this person and know the way that this person lived her life, then we might be able to know. But to them, they know it. They know why, and they come back with this need to change. So now, when an NDE occurs, typically in situations when a person is in the imminence of death, such as during cardiac arrest, drowning, accidents, coma, suicide attempt, drug overdose, and the visually impaired. I mentioned this because in this 30 years of research, Kenneth Ring, one of the pioneers of near-death experience research, so he raised the question that was very interesting because normal people with normal vision would say that when they got out of the body, during a near-death experience, they could see things. They could see what was happening down in the environment where they had the experience. They could hear nurses talk. They could hear so many times, in many cases, the doctor saying that they're gone. And they said, you know, I'm not gone. I'm still here. Keep pumping. Keep pumping. Others didn't care. Even when they heard the doctor saying that he's gone, they didn't care if he would return or not. So there, this case. Now, and so Kenneth Ring asked the question, so if these people are seeing things and they're not in the physical body, maybe they have a set of organs or whatever that would, that makes them see out of the physical body. And then he said, well, I wonder if blind people who had near-death experience, if they see. Because they're same situation, same condition. The body is unconscious. It doesn't matter if it has normal vision or no. It has no vision. Would they see? And so he, with the help of organizations that cared for the blind, several of them, he was able to locate about 40 people who were blind and who had near-death experience. Then he concentrated a number of people who had been either born blind, or those who became blind at very early days of their infancy. So because, you know, the most blind that the person would be, the better for him, his research or the results. And we have in 12 cases, and I have a chapter here, they saw. They saw. And they would see the people, and they would give details of the people they're seeing, the place they were at, that they had never seen before. So we have, he located 12. And he didn't continue it. That was the research that he did, because it was very difficult to find those people, etc. But the samples that he had, it's a very good number, 12. One would be good enough, but he had much more than that. So it shows, and when we study Spiritism, we see Kardec asks us a question, if the spirit, how the spirit sees, if it's through the same organs that the physical body does, like located, like the eyes see, the ears hear, and the mouth speaks. No, we can see. We have mechanism in our spirit body that enables us to see, regardless of having this the vision apparatus which the physical body has. Any questions? So we go. Now, what happens then? What are the sensations? So the first one is the feeling of leaving the body. So the person has this consciousness that it's disengaging, that he or she is disengaging from the physical body. And then there is this feeling of peace and well-being. In heart attacks especially, in some accidents also, there was intense pain prior to losing consciousness. For instance, a heart attack. I never had one. I hope I don't have one, or I won't have one. But whoever had it, in some cases, the pain is excruciating. So at the moment, then the heart stops. Then leaving the phenomena of the leaving the body also starts. Then all pain goes away, because consciousness in this case was transferred to a body that feels no pain, which is the spirit body, or perispirit, as we call it in Spiritism. So there's this intense feeling, all pain gone, this lightness of being normally floating up. And then the other stage is seeing what's happening. So the person is conscious, is out of the body. Many of them, they do check their own body, they look and they have this feeling. They know I have a body, even if it's not a physical body, some kind of whatever it is. They don't know because it will be interesting to find the spiritists who had near-death experience, right? See, because these people, they see or they have this feeling, these experiences that, you know, they're different religions or no religion. There's a lot of atheists, and that the experience that they have is what we learn in Spiritism. So, and then they see what's going on, and then there's a moment. In many cases, that then after all this, there's this sudden darkness. They see themselves in this sudden darkness, and then somewhere in this darkness they see a point of light, which starts very small, but then it starts to intensify, and there is this desire. It's like the person is being pulled towards that light, so it follows it, either walking or going through, or the light coming. So they don't know exactly how it is, and then this light starts to expand. And normally, in many cases, when the person finds themselves in the light, they noticed that it is a tunnel or has the form of a tunnel, and then many of them just go in, or others they feel themselves flying in a very tremendous speed through the tunnel. But the end of the tunnel, when the end of the journey, is always the spirit, some kind of what they call this spirit world. So then there's where they see this, either a green metal and a light, or this intense light, or music, or things that are intense positively, and that makes them feel good. This is they never, for instance, when at the end of the tunnel, they never end up in New Jersey, for instance, or if they live the nice life, then in South Beach. It's always a realm that is non-physical. In this realm that is non-physical, when they see relatives, friends, they don't see anybody who is alive. It's always people who are dead. So, and the same thing happens in other phenomena that's called deathbed vision, when the person is indeed dying. So the body is going to die either, you know, in 5 minutes or 10 minutes or one day, and this person is also seeing deceased relatives. They say that so-and-so is here. And this so-and-so, wherever this so-and-so is always dead. There's no so-and-so alive. In those cases, in fact, it was what drew the attention of one of the first researchers, was the fact that the person who was dying was seeing her deceased father, who everybody knew that was deceased many years before, and her sister with her father. But the thing is that she didn't know that the sister had died, because the sister had some kind of problem. It was a sick child it was an adult already for most of her life. And but this girl who was dying, the lady who was dying, loved her. So, and she was in a very, she was sick. So the family wanting to spare her from, you know, telling her that the sister had died, didn't say anything. So in her mind, the sister was alive. So, but the sister was dead, and she didn't know. And there are many cases, including there's a case in Salvador, in Bahia. And coincidentally, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams died July 4th. I don't remember the year. But Jefferson died first, and John Adams died a few hours later. And then when prior to dying, he said, what the heck is Jefferson doing here? So Jefferson was there, and he didn't know that Jefferson had died. So together, right? A barrier. The barrier is some have this feeling. I wonder, maybe some of those who don't return maybe cross the barrier, because some of them actually a very large field. For you to have an idea, according to current research, in the United States alone, about 800 people have a near-death experience every day. There's a lot of people dying here, right? Or everywhere. It's 150,000 people dying every day around the world. And those who have a brush with death but don't die and have the experiences. So obviously this is an estimation that is done by a sample of people who are near death, and then they tell about the experience. So it's a pretty large number. And that's not it. This we're talking about only here in the United States, and there's another, 6,700,000 people around the world. The barrier is that they get to this point that they have this feeling if they pass, they cross it, they won't return. And this barrier could be a fence, could be a river. Sometimes the person insists in crossing. There is a case of this blind kid that he wanted to cross. The music was so beautiful, it was coming from, there's this big structure, and he was drawn to it, and he wanted to go there because he couldn't avoid it. So when he got to a certain point that he was going to cross, then there's this big arm that just fell in front of him and pushed him back. So, life review. This is something that's amazing. And this is pretty consistent. When the person has this experience, at one point, in many of them, the 10 stages is what we call a full-blown near-death experience. But there's some that it happens, just phases of it, 1, 2, 3. But the life review is pretty consistent. Life review is that, the name says. And normally, it's a very short by our measure of time, maybe seconds. But to them, experiencing it is something that is vivid, intense, and it feels like it lasts an eternity. So they see what happened to them in many cases, even from the day they're born, the way they're living their lives, people that they helped, people that they hurt, and all those things, how they're living their lives, things they're doing right, things they're doing wrong, things that need to be changed. Sometimes they have that feeling on their own. Sometimes they're poked by someone they call a spirit light, a being of light, that tell us, this, no judgment, right? It's a consciousness thing. It's our self-consciousness thing. It's us. It's nobody there judging us. It's us judging ourselves. It's us being conscious of what we're doing and how we're living our lives in ourselves, knowing as a spirit that we are what needs to be changed, what does not, what should stay. So in the life review is one of the main elements that when they come back to earth, then they change, they come changed. It returns to the body normally by mechanical means or some naturally, as I mentioned, and the life change. So why does it happen? Any question? Because we only have 15 minutes.
Yes, so we could understand for everything that you said now that it's a privilege for those who have experienced near death. What do you think?
A privilege?
Yes.
Well,
you can review many things.
Yeah.
You can change the way they live. So what do you think about it?
I think that is something that us as a spirit we should do prior to that. It's I call it as experiences and some other traumatic experiences that we go in life, because sometimes life reserves for our own good certain trauma, certain things that I call our shake awake time. So it is God shaking us awake to our true reality, and these people are people who are forced, and they're maybe privileged. Yeah, why not? They're lucky, because if they change, then they're going to spare themselves a lot of trouble, both in this life and the next life and the next life. So it's a good thing. And that's what we emphasize in the spirit is change. Why? Because it's us. We're not, we're not going to be saints when we leave the physical body. We're going to be what we are. What we know is what we have learned in our lifetimes, the way we act, the way we behave. It's us just being in a different body. So why does it happen? We have this answer in
we just have to be a little careful with the word privilege, because it seems like some people are getting something special that no one else gets because they have been chosen, there's usually a spiritual need or spiritual meaning
That's
or
right.
purpose for that to be happening to those specific persons.
Yeah.
So it's not, there's no privileges in the universe in the sense that someone especially chosen, or you know, because the word privilege gives a little bit of an idea of favoritism, which does not exist under God's law. So what there is certainly God's mercifulness. There is certainly the spiritual need for that experience, but like, you know, as Jay is saying, I mean, usually it is an instrument for, you know, awakening, for expanding consciousness that needs to take place. And a lot of people who do have this experience, they go on to not only you will have effects in their personal lives, but they will share that experience with others, so it will impact not only their personal lives but society as a whole.
Right, of course, all people that are in the book, the one of research, and in the book, the title of the book that did a lot of research on a near-death experience by suicide, by drug attempts, drug overdose, and things like that. All the darkness, or they call it lasting positive. The title of the book is Blessings in Disguise. So that probably it is a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, I had a near-death experience. When I was 12, I was swimming in a lake, and someone threw a rock on the platform where I was jumping from. It hit my eye, and I, you know, sank into the water. And only one person saw that, and he jumped into the water and started looking for me. But, you know, several minutes had gone by, and by the time he found me, I was already dead. And I saw, so that basically the images I have is of a black thing, which must have been the rock. Then the next scene I see is as if I was in a very high building or in a helicopter, and I was seeing the whole scene, the platform, my body was there, people around, I could see my father swimming from the beach towards the platform, and I felt that there were beings next to me. I didn't see anything, but I felt really, really good. And I was looking at this, and I thought, well, I'm dead, and it's okay. And then I felt you know, like if they were saying to me, okay, now you have to go back.
Yeah, I have to go back.
And I say, no, but I don't want to go back. I want to stay here. And he goes, no, you have to go back. And then the next image I have is of all the faces looking at me. So, you know, I'm back in the body, and everyone's like, oh, big fuss around me, and that's what happened. And, but like for me, I didn't consider that a big
thing. You're a kid, right? You're a kid, right? You were a kid, right? You were a kid.
Yeah, I was 12.
Yeah. So maybe you lived without having shown all those things. Maybe you lived your life the way you're living. So you know, the way you should live. So, but
the other thing which I thought was interesting when you said that you have that life review. I felt that when I did a bungee jump for the first time. I was really scared, and I jumped, and I saw my whole life, and I was thinking, my God, what did I do? And I'm sure that that's what suicide people, when they jump, they feel that.
Yeah.
You know, I'm absolutely sure.
Yeah.
I felt that, you know, the fear and, oh my God, what did I do? And then I saw my whole life go by in a flash.
Yeah.
You know, so
that's very interesting, trauma. So the explanation, we have in the Spirit's book, 407, that the Spirit, which is us, right, recover our freedom when the senses of the body is torpid. So we want, as a spirit, we want to emancipate, to get out of the body. So we take advantage of every moment that of respite that the body gives us. And as I mentioned, chapter 8, Emancipation of the Soul, is filled with that information. And those who of you experienced with out-of-body experience, for instance, you know that, and that happens when the body is sleeping. Now, the other information is in the sequence. As soon as prostration of the vital forces occurs, the spirit disengages, or we leave the physical body. And the feebler the body, the freer is the spirit. And in case of near-death experience, it is the closest that it is to real death. So the body is very feeble. So it's no wonder that this experience has happened. Now, and also the other information that we have when Kardec asks, when we leave physical life, when the body dies, if we, as a spirit, we're going to preserve our individuality, if we are going to be who we are, an individual, because we have in certain religions that we sort of get enmeshed. We go into this ocean of consciousness and no more individuality. We're part of the wholeness or whatever. And then the answer is that yes, it never loses. We never lose our individuality. We preserve it, right? Yes, it never loses. What would the spirit be if it did not preserve our individuality? So what would be? So we preserve, we will be who we are in another type of life, of course, or in a way of life living. Now, how does the spirit preserve its individuality if it no longer has a material body? So Kardec was then equating this individuality as the presence of a physical body. So how is that? Then we have this information that we as a spirit, we'd still have an energy body or fluidic body in some literature, a perispirit. Now these guys, these spirits, all these embodied spirits, telling Kardec and answering his questions about this energy body, this reality. So, and they said that 150 so years ago. So this is like an image. It would be like we have this right now. We have, so in essence, and we learned that in the spirit, is we are a spirit first. As a spirit, we have this spiritual body. When now we are in the physical body because we incarnated. So it was us existing in a non-physical world with a non-physical body, which we call perispirit, that we reincarnated and formed a physical body. And now we are now enmeshed in this as a spirit in the physical body, using it as an instrument to interact in the physical world. Now this is spiritism, right? Now, and how about science? How about other studies of this, of the existence? Is there anything that we could back up what we're learning from spiritism? So we have this in vitalism, and that was back in the 16th and 17th century, that scientists, anatomists, biologists, they believed vitalism is this vital force that the human or whatever physical organism have it. So, and what is this vital force or this vitalism? It's a vital force. This is their conception that is independent of the body, and it infuses life into it. And we learn in spiritism that when we are going to reincarnate, we, in our spirit, we form the physical body using obviously the genetic material of our parents. And then this is vitalism. It creates the body. This vital force creates the physical body. And then more recent, from 1916 to 1956, this he was a Yale professor, Hareton Sexton Burr, and it was interesting. He was a doctor. He was also an anatomist, a physiologist, all things that, and he also liked all the things, electricity, all this, and he also believed that that the physical, or us, and a living organism is not only that living organism, that for that living organism to be alive and to be organized, there would have to be some sort of energy material, a blueprint, energetic blueprint to give form and to give life to that organism. And so he spent his 40 years studying this. And it's a short book, but it's beautifully written. And this is what he said. This is his conclusion, that man, in fact, all forms are ordered and controlled by what he called electrodynamic fields, which can be measured and mapped with precision. He has all the measurements that he made, studying not only, he studied a lot of animals, all kind of small animals and physicality, fetus, all of that. So it was an amazing job that he did. And he called these fields of life. And then he goes on to saying that the electrodynamic field of the body serves as a matrix or mode. And we learned that in Spiritism, the perispirit forms the physical body. And we can even see in some like congenital defects in reincarnation studies that when depending on the damage that was done in the previous life, when they caused the physical life, the physical death of a previous body, then the intensity of the trauma is able to copy that in the new body. Let's say that a person loses an arm or an ear, such as the case, or a leg, then it's so intense, the trauma, so profound that the physical body will have that defect, the new body. And Ian Stevenson, which was the greatest research of reincarnation, he even, as also a medical doctor, psychiatrist, he said that he was convinced that this previous body shapes the new body and also brings with it certain conditions, like be it a birthmark or a birth defect, depending on the intensity of the trauma. So we have a lot of scientific backup. And one of the most recent, it was Rupert Sheldrake, and he called it morphic field. And he says that all living organisms, including us, have within them morphogenetic or morphic fields, which are responsible for the organization and form of material systems. So it's also what we call perispirit. Now, it's 12. So we have 2 minutes. I don't know if you have any questions or comments. So this is a topic that we could go on for hours. And the more details I gave you in the book. And this is one phrase that André Luiz, actually I think it's his mentor that says it in his book, Messengers of Light, that beyond the grave, what is most surprising to us is finding ourselves alive again. So we have in our consoling doctrine teachings that are, as I mentioned before, backed up by science. So we have something that's very solid. So that we know for sure that we're not just this physical body and that there's more to it. There was more to it before we came here, and there will be more to it after we leave this physical life. But this physical life is a moment that we have asked for. We have been permitted to come back to fix things, to do things. So reincarnation, or being reincarnated, like Emmanuel says, it's almost God forgiving us for whatever wrong we're doing. We came here for that. We figured out, we did a life review as we would do when we leave physical life, when we are for good on the other side of life, as spirits tell us, and also we can see that in people who are near death. We will see, and we learn that in Spiritism, we will see what needs to be done, what needs to be fixed in order for us to improve, to take steps toward our evolution, which is our main objective, always evolving, always being better. And we chose to be here, to be back here. That is our mission, to be better than we were when our last life, and also as we learn every day to be better than we were in the day before or in the morning before. Always a new moment for change, for us to become better, so that we won't regret ever in whatever life we are, physical or spiritual, always with the clear consciousness that we did the best that we could have done with the resources and knowledge that we had. Life goes on. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful